Welcome back for the third and final day of TORC Digital. Our 25th anniversary All-TOYOTAFEST was a tremendous success, and after an especially tough 2020, we deeply appreciate everyone who came together for a very happy Toyota family reunion.
Hey everyone, welcome to TOYOTAFEST.
Introducing a small wonder, the new Toyota Starlet. Born small to solve big problems. Born small to deliver more miles per gallon of gas than any other car, and designed to help beat higher maintenance costs. The very new Toyota Starlet. Born small. In fact, it just may be the first small wonder of the world.
Oh, 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 what a feeling.
Starlet.
Toyota.
Hi, my name's Jeff Yee. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I have a 1976 Celica. TOYOTAFEST is a great event. I hang out there with all my friends. It actually ends up being like a big reunion for all of our friends, and it's like we sit down and talk about cars all day. So it's a really great family event. Unlike a lot of the shows out there, you don't see the half-naked girls. You see, like, it's really a bunch of guys. So not that I have anything wrong with half-naked girls, but it's more of a family event. So it's really good for everybody to go out, from 4 years old to 80s. I think it's just a really good thing for everybody to get together, and it's a good celebration for just all of Toyotas. Like, people don't see these old cars anymore. They're used to seeing Priuses and the Tacoma pickups, but it's a good thing to see everything from the whole Toyota line from the very beginning to where they are currently. When I was growing up in high school and college, all the kids had like really lowered cars and fixed up wheels and stuff like that, and kind of grew up back up. And it's like, I went to work, kind of went away from all the cars, and finally can afford the car that I kind of wanted from back in college. And Celica is always a car that I wanted to build, and it was really supposed to be a basic build. But then I ended up finding an engine and building that up and doing all kinds of other stuff like that. But it really is a car that I wanted to build from way back when. And good thing, I have friends and made more friends that actually have Celicas, and it's just a really great social atmosphere. Today I have with me a 1976 Celica, and let's go check it out. This is my 76 Celica. Just on the outside, just visual modifications, like see I have the SSR reversed mesh wheels. They're 7.5 by 15, wrapped in Yokohama. What is it? I'm forgetting what Yokohamas they are, but of course lowered with Techno Toy tuning coilover kit. The front, there's like some minor things they had, like the turn signals on the front. They're like the yellow ones, which are toms. They're not really toms, but it's little minor differences they have. Also have a front spoiler on there. And if we go to the back, the biggest thing that you'll notice is I have banana tail lights. Banana tail lights are getting harder and harder to get. Also, of course, we have JDM bumpers. They're much smaller than the USDM bumpers, and they're I don't know, they're way cooler. I think a lot of people will look for that too. Also, you'll see like stupid little things that I did. Like you'll have yellow side markers in the rear. It's kind of like a little thing that we did way back in the day as well. And also the taillights, we run ambers in the back too. That was another thing we did way back in the day. It was just kind of a visual thing we did. It just make the car look wider when the lights are on. Exhaust, it runs like a full stainless steel exhaust. I actually kind of did it myself. It doesn't look the best, but it's something that I wanted to do myself. It was like a hobby for myself to learn special skills and stuff like that with with friends of mine. So, all this stuff is just cosmetic. When you get into the inside, you'll see a lot of the other stuff that we did that individual is what I would like to say. So, moving to the interior, a lot of the stuff is very original. There are a few things that we kind of changed to make a little customized, but the steering wheel is a Tal Volante steering wheel, which I don't even think they make them anymore. It's just something that kind of came with the person that I bought it from. Everything else is original. There's an uncracked dash in there, which I'm super proud about. I mean, it's super hard to get like an uncracked dash. If you try and find one right now, which is impossible to get, you'll probably spend $800 to $1,000 for it. The seat covers were actually redone. They're actually redone looking a little bit more JDM looking, like the early 74 Celicas that came from Japan. You'll see that they have some little air holes in the bottom. That's kind of what they had. And the rear was changed out to look that way as well. It's a really custom looking thing. Also, the stupid thing that I have is an 8-track player. It doesn't work, but it fits the times, Somebody looks at it, it's like, what is that? It's like an 8-track tape. Like, a lot of kids will never know what it is, but it also has Earth, Wind & Fire Greatest Hits tape in there. So kind of proud of that. Another thing we used to do back in the day too is have these wink mirrors, which is a 5-panel mirror that we used to see all across in the back. Kind of a safety thing, but also it's just kind of things that we just did. One of the things that you'll notice with a lot of old Celicas is you'll see interiors that are either incomplete or kind of falling apart. This one happens to be from New York, which actually has a really great interior. You'll either find cars in the Pacific Northwest, which is like a lot of rain and rust, so the exteriors are falling apart, but the interiors are great. Or you get the California cars where have a lot of sun and it's dry, but so the exteriors are really good and rust-free, but the interiors are falling apart because of the sun baked. Kind of got really lucky about getting a good interior as well as a good exterior as well. I guess now onto the engine. You'll see that most Celicas have a 20R motor, which is super common here in the States. I happen to be lucky enough to have a friend with an 18RG, which he sold it to me. I'm not going to say how much he sold it to me for, but let me just say he's a really good friend. So it's an 18RG, it's a twin cam. It's really only available in Europe and Japan, and I think even Australia as well. Of course, I had that bored out to a 2.2 liter. The 20Rs are like, this is a single cam, but it's a 2.4 liter, whereas the 22R. But anyway, this actually puts out a little bit more power than that. I had it bored out. I have cast pistons that I bought from another friend of mine. You also notice that I have the dual Mikuni side drafts as well. Again, really not necessary, but I did steel braided hoses. You can do with rubber hoses, but just, it's a jewelry that I kind of wanted to do just to make it look a little nicer. Have the Toyota radiator as well. A friend of mine from Koyo got me the hookup for that. So I think the stock radiator is fine for it, but just want to kind of do an upgrade for it. The thing that I'm kind of proud about that I did is I did the linkage for it. You'll see a lot of people run cable, and I kind of wanted to keep the original linkage looking. So again, I had a friend of mine kind of weld some Heim joints in there, and I screwed those in. Just did a custom linkage setup for the Mikunis. I think you might be able to find it by finding a Japanese car, but again, custom looking. So everything's changed to electronic ignition. I'm running an MSD box as well. Just get a little bit more power. It's running the Ultra 8mm wires. I think I have a set of TRDs at home, but they don't run as well as the Ultra because, of course, these are new. But that's kind of it, It's just kind of a fun car to drive. If I race a Camry, it'll probably beat me, but it's just kind of fun for a period piece, Thanks for checking out my 76 Celica. I'll see you at Toyota Fest.
Carol, you know what I'm going to buy you? A sports car.
David, you're so impractical. We need a station wagon.
Carol, I want a sports car.
A station wagon, David?
Carol, a sports car.
David, we need a station wagon.
We need 2 cars in one.
You asked for it. The all-new Toyota Celica GT Liftback. Lift the rear door, drop the back seat, and your sporty Celica becomes a practical car. And it'll last long after the honeymoon is over. Toyota's unitized body construction is built for the long haul. 9 out of 10 Toyota cars in America are still on the road. You get McPherson strut front suspension, AM/FM stereo, and much more at no extra cost. Plus 5-speed overdrive transmission to deliver great gas mileage. 36 highway, 20 city, and who knows how much on the dance floor. The new Toyota Celica GT Liftback.
You ask for it, you got it, Toyota. Oh, what a feeling.
Every one of these luxury models, every one was traded in for this, a new Toyota Celica Supra. Traded because when they drove the Toyota Supra, they discovered luxury they just had to have. Get the feeling of Supra's surprising luxury and 6-cylinder fuel-injected performance. Drive a Supra. Feeling is believing.
Oh, 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 what a feeling to drive Toyota.
So for many decades, Toyota ran the super popular Pro-Celebrity race, which happened every year at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. And this is the race that's an exhibition race where celebrities and pros battle it out. Of course, the celebrities are professional drivers, so they get a huge head start, and then the pros have to run them down. Somebody is the winner for celebrity, somebody's the winner for pro, and then they declare an overall winner. But because they don't race for their day job, they need sometimes some specialized training and other kinds of things to help them do this activity and still thrive and get it done in a way which is still going to be fun for the fans to watch. So one of the things that you need to do during racing is, in a manual transmission, you need to shift the gearbox, right? Well, if you don't want to have to look at the tachometer and see the revs when you're trying to focus on the battle that you're in and watching, going down the track, and let's face it, if you're not a professional race car driver, the kind of multitasking you need to do in a race car can be absolutely overwhelming. And so different drivers needed that light to come on at different times in order for them to see it and, recognize it and then pull that gear. So not saying Karl Malone, but there were other drivers over the years that needed that light to come on perhaps earlier. And so inside the autometer shift light, there are these little things called pills. This one says 7.8, which basically means that this is going to make the light turn on at 7,800 RPM. But there were drivers that needed it at 7,500 or 7,000, or in some cases 6,000 RPM, because if they didn't, they would be eating the rev limiter, bang, 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 and then, it's time to shift. So rather than having that happen and risking damage to the car or something breaking, they would customize these pills to each individual driver's needs.
It has the highest ground clearance in its class. But more importantly, 1996's pickup truck of the year comes with 190 horses, all with big chips on their shoulders. Toyota Tacoma. You simply can't buy a more powerful compact truck.
Of the 143 new car models surveyed in 1985, Toyota Camry was rated the most trouble-free sold in America. So it's not surprising that Camry owners tell the most amazing stories of the unbelievable feeling of security they have driving their Camrys. Presenting the '87 Toyota Camry, more power, handsome new styling. An amazing car gets even better. Who could ask for anything more?
It's time to take a look at more great Toyotas on Day 3 of TORC Digital. Let's start with a few neo-classics and recent releases.
Hello, I'm Jordan Kaneshiro, and this is my 1990 Toyota Camry.
Jordan Kaneshiro of Cypress, California brings us his modified 1990 Camry. Jordan has taken this Camry far from its sensible sedan roots with a custom body kit and performance suspension. This 1994 Supra Turbo is the property of Mike Sadogi of Escondido, California. It features a 3.4-liter stroker motor and TRD limited slip. Jimmy Ty's 2003 Matrix XRS rides on a lowered coilover suspension and features many tasteful upgrades courtesy of TRD. Jimmy and his Matrix reside in Stanton, California. Also showing a 2003 Matrix is Cesar Ramirez of Los Angeles, California. Cesar's Matrix features a custom exhaust, lowered suspension, and a competition clutch, to name just a few of its many modifications. We'll be back with more great cars from TORC Digital after these classic commercials from Toyota.
You're looking at one thing you'll find in every Toyota Celica, MR2, and Supra. We hope you'll never have to use it.
I love what you do for me, Toyota.
Introducing one of the most visually distinct automobiles you've ever seen, and the most technologically advanced Celica Toyota has ever created. The all-new Toyota Celica, with sophisticated safety systems, available ABS, standard driver and passenger side airbags. But despite all this technology, when people see the new Celica, there's only one thing that keeps coming to mind. Watch out, it's here.
So behind me here sits a 1990 Celica All-Trac Turbo. Now, this is a classic car and very iconic. However, turbocharged engines are more popular today than perhaps ever. So the great thing about turbo engines is that they can be smaller in size and sip fuel when you're not driving them hard. However, when you need that power, you get on the throttle and bam, the engine's turbocharger forces air into the engine. We can then dump a lot more fuel in there, make tons of power, right? This sounds pretty good. However, there are challenges. Turbocharged engines, when they're running hard and on boost, they produce a lot of heat. They're notoriously hard on the coolant and the engine oil, but guess what? They're also very known for producing a ton of heat in your engine compartment. So, if you look closely at the hood of that Celica behind me there, you're going to see some louvers. They are designed to evacuate air or vent that engine compartment so that cooler atmospheric air can come in there to help keep things under control on a temperature basis. However, there are times when even that is not enough to protect all of your parts. Case in point with the Celica, the alternator. This is a key component. It has to be there for daily use. It has to be there for reliable operation. The alternator in the Celica's very busy engine compartment is only a few inches from the exhaust side of the turbocharger. And being that close to that turbo can really cause trouble. Those exhaust sides of the turbochargers in vehicles can get glowing red hot and produce a ton of heat. A typical alternator is constructed in a way that at the back of it, where the wiring comes into it, it's usually made out of plastic where the wire harnesses can plug in. Plastic on those is very robust, however, cannot withstand the punishment of this turbocharger heat so close. So what did Toyota do? We made a shield. We made a part that goes on the back of the alternator to cover that more delicate plastic area. It's metal. And then we add some additional heat reflective insulation tape around some other areas in that part of the alternator that could be affected. And what this does is effectively hold out the heat and keep it away from your alternator. So here's a case of Toyota making a part that does nothing particular to the vehicle operation, right? It just protects the back of the alternator, and that's the part that's doing the work that we want to keep running. So the Celica All-Trac alternator, back even in 1990, was well protected by thoughtful engineering from Toyota.
My name is Robert New. I'm from Torrance, California, originally from Japan, and I grew up with these old cars, so kind of continued to go down this path. I have a Toyota Corolla Mark II 1971 coupe, and I like the car because it's something unusual you don't see at all around the streets, and that's kind of why I like to continue to drive this car.
RT6070 正しいコース。
So for my association with the Toyota Owners Restorers Club, I joined I think around 99, I believe, and I noticed in I believe in the Hemmings back then, and looked at the article there, and back then it was a very small entity, not many people, so on and so forth. You had to do the membership, get the newsletters. It was really old school before the whole digital age there. So I have a very long association with being part of the Toyota Owners Restorers Club, and continue to attend all the meetings. I think I only missed one because of some business relation that I had to go take care of, so I couldn't attend that one, but almost every single one of the Toyota Fests I've actually joined. Going back to the original days of the All Toyota Fest, it was not really necessarily called All Toyota Fest, it was just called the Toyota Fest. And the very small amount of people kind of joined and kind of got together. It was more like a car club type of thing where you just come, enjoy, barbecue, kind of see who is who, and that was pretty much it. And we started continuing down the path. Through some connections, we got the availability to go to the Queen Mary. So before the old green parking area, there was actually the asphalt area in front of the Queen Mary, and those events were still kind of like people kind of coming and going and whatnot. Maybe attendance of, I would say, 25 to 40 cars. A lot of the older cars, and it wasn't really part of the newer vehicles back then. And one time we did one in the green area, which attracted about 85 so on cars, and that was still kind of restricted to the older vehicles. And then we started thinking about, wow, Toyota Fest is actually good. There's a lot of people that are enthusiastic about Toyotas. We should have this kind of expanded beyond that. And right about that time, it was when Scion was starting up, and Scion was kind of wanting to kind of join, so we invited the newer vehicles into the Toyota Fest. Scion had a very large presence back then. We had to kind of restrict them because they were so enthusiastic, and also had some Lexus folks, so that's when it kind of kicked off into the All Toyota Fest, and it kind of blew up to the point where some of the years the registration was like sold out within a couple hours when it was open. So it was a very good thing that we did expand it back then, and it is the largest Toyota only car meet in North America, I believe. So that's where it's kind of unique, and I continue to attend. I try to bring a new car, but it's not done yet, so I have not been able to bring this one yet.
There's no law that says every car you build must be able to take more of a beating than it will ever have to. But it's a better car when you build it that way. So Toyota does. There's no law that says you have to undercoat a car, but it's better protected against corrosion and wear when you do. So Toyota does. There's no law about unit construction, but when the body and frame are welded together, a car is quieter and safer. So Toyota does it that way. And there's certainly nothing that says you have to put every single car through over 700 tests and inspections. But there's a certain kind of reputation you get when you do. So Toyota does.
Toyota's going to demonstrate something unique that no other car has. ESP, Toyota's electro sensor panel. It monitors 11 key service areas and lights up momentarily to show you it's working every time you start the car. If a headlight goes out, for any reason, ESP lets you know. ESP tells you your front disc brake pads haven't worn thin. If the light hasn't come on, the pads are okay. Brake fluid's okay too. And you're not low on oil, but you did just lose a taillight. Obviously, ESP takes a lot of the worry out of caring for a car. That's why we made it standard on the new Corolla hardtops. But then, it's the kind of innovation you'd expect from Toyota. Small car specialists for 40 years.
Land Speed Cruiser was built as one of these contrarian contraptions for SEMA, because obviously the Land Cruiser has a reputation and a history of going anywhere, off-road mostly, off the pavement. So trying to make it go on pavement and do 200 miles an hour plus was really going to be a challenging thing. It's challenging if you have a car and you're trying to make it go over 200 miles an hour, let alone something that, let's face it, looks like a gigantic brick going through the air. How do you do that? And you know, I think that this is a case, and I'll do it inverted on purpose, of machine and man, because there's a certain amount that needs to happen with the machine, and then there's a certain amount that needs to happen with the man, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the most important things that needs to happen is what I learned from my racing mentor, Bernardo Martinez, when I asked him, what's the most important thing you learned from your racing mentor? And he said, well, it's actually three things, Don, and they're all the same. It's testing, testing, and testing. So in the early kind of testing phase, they were working on trying to put together a custom one-off four-wheel drive transmission, this awesome, amazing, state-of-the-art thing, but it was taking so long and it was having some teething pains. And so they went to something that was a lot more off the shelf. And although not as interesting, it was a bulletproof solution. And sometimes you need that simple solution to get to where you want to go. As far as actually going out to the track and doing the testing, the Land Speed Cruiser went to Willow Springs, it went to California Speedway, it went to Toyota Arizona Proving Ground, what we call TAPG, outside of Surprise, Arizona, and then it ultimately did its real, you know, record-setting run at the Mojave Air and Spaceport. So there was a lot of testing. There were a lot of things that happened. There was a little fire that happened. I remember watching on the in-car camera. I'm like, why is Craig getting out of the car? Craig Stanton, who was the test driver through most of this, is Rolex GT champion. He and I drove together in Grand Am, and he's grabbing a handheld and trying to put out a fire before fire and rescue get there. And then we're at another facility and there's oil pouring out. And these are just the teething pains when you're building something so amazingly one-off to try to get there. You're talking about 2,000, 3,000 horsepower. But the other part is, you know, and the man part of it with Craig Stanton at first for the test driving is, I've never seen Craig afraid of doing anything in a race car, but a one-off Land Cruiser that he was supposed to go 200 miles an hour in. We're interviewing before he does a run at the TAPG on the 10-mile oval. I've never seen him so nervous. You know, you're putting your life in the hands of this thing that's unproven. And so being able to get the driver mentally prepared to do it was also really critical. When we got to the Mojave Air and Spaceport, Carl Edwards came, and literally Craig was going to go. He was going to do it, you know, the way he always was planning to do it. And there was an opportunity for Carl to come. It was like less than 48 hours notice. He flew in his plane, he showed up, and both he and Craig looked at each other and said, what were we thinking? So trying to get them over that hurdle is also a big part of it. And they needed to tell each other, you need to do this is what I experienced. You need to keep your foot in it at this point, or here's how you need to shift it. One other little interesting bit that we put into the car for them is I had a tablet and it had this little app on it that tracks speed. It has these little warnings and alarms, but you can put it so there's just three big numbers on it, digits. And we took it and we covered the entire navigation system dash with some gaffer's tape and kind of made it look like it was the nav screen. And when they got to the 200-mile threshold, it would go blue. And then as they got over that number, which was the previous record, it was 211, 215, something like that, it would go red, and you can watch either their head or you see their eyeballs darting over here and looking at that big screen. And eventually you'll see on the in-car camera, if you go look at the video on YouTube, that it hit 230 miles an hour. And that's the story of the Land Speed Cruiser and getting there. But it doesn't happen, obviously, easily. And people wanted to know about it. Top Gear flew in from the UK, and many publications got a chance to really see what this vehicle is all about.
It is an experience above all else. It is Avalon. Toyota technology taken to a new level of excellence. A world of superior comfort, room, and refined driving performance. Avalon, the new flagship from Toyota. Built exclusively in America. Experience the tranquility.
Toyota trucks are legendary for their toughness and reliability. Here's a look at a trio of classic Toyota SUVs. Juan Rosales of Bellflower, California presents this 1987 4Runner SR5. Juan's 4Runner boasts a solid axle swap for serious off-roading duty. Ready for adventure is Ryan Toll's modified 1986 FJ60 Land Cruiser. Based out of Santa Monica, California, Ryan's Land Cruiser includes a heavy-duty cargo rack and breather snorkel for those pesky water crossings. Carrying Land Cruiser love into the next generation, here's Jason Pizarro's 1997 FJ80. Prepped for hardcore overlanding trips, Jason's Land Cruiser spends its downtime in Chula Vista, California.
Who's ready to unleash the most powerful small 4x4 ever to beat up a mountain? Who's ready to unchain more horsepower than any small 4x4 ever? Who's introducing the first 4x4 gas turbo in America? Toyota's who? The 1986 Toyota 4x4 Turbo. With all new high-track independent front suspension for even more comfort. It's the who's who in 4x4s.
Who could ask for anything more? Toyota.
Look, out on the lawn. It's a barbecue. It's a raft. It's the kids. This looks like a job for Toyota Wonder Wagon. The 1987 Wonder Wagon, able to carry cargo and up to 7 people in a single trip. Able to switch to 4-wheel drive. Able to turn on a dime. Even able to make ice. If your wagon can't do this, it may be a job for Toyota Wonder Wagon.
So today, if you read the newspaper or look at any electronic media, the electrification of vehicles is really a huge topic today, right now. However, this had a process at Toyota. We didn't start out making a huge splash in the hybrid market. Our first gen Prius we sold in the United States and in North America, starting in the fall of 2000, was a vehicle that you could arguably say was not the most popular hybrid ever. We sold a small number of them. The owners did not use them very hard. They didn't drive a ton of miles with them. They enjoyed them, but it had a very limited appeal due to its small sedan size and capability. However, when we got that first gen here in the US, the second generation Prius was already in development. And when we got that car here in the United States, things drastically changed for Toyota. When talking to journalists about the second generation car, they had a lot of questions for me about, what's the battery longevity on these things? And I honestly could not answer those questions because the first generation car left us with more questions than answers. However, what we found very quickly with the second generation Prius, that teardrop shaped hatchback design was very appealing. Taxi companies bought them in large numbers and miled them up very quickly, which gave us a lot of service data and technical data on the longevity of our drivetrains. And it turned out that they're very robust. Alongside of that, parallel at the same time, the market for consumers jumped into this car. It was like, wow, its utility is great. The fuel economy is great. It does all these things so well, and gas prices were high. So the second generation car took off, and it really caused a philosophy change at Toyota in the role of hybrid vehicles moving forward. Initially, we had them perhaps categorized as a Band-Aid technology to get us to hydrogen fuel cell. However, the hydrogen fuel cell development process did take a bit longer than anticipated, and during that time, that second generation Prius now becomes popular. It makes a huge impact on the environment. We're saving fuel, we're reducing CO2 emissions. And so in the end, the company changed its view on electrified vehicles to not only include gasoline hybrids, but plug-in hybrids. Fuel cell hybrid vehicles are now functional and working well for consumers, and battery electric vehicles. So we developed a plan to have a palette of drive lines of electrified vehicles available, and Toyota continues to pursue that today.
People aren't looking for good mileage. They're looking for great mileage. And here it comes, Starlet, a Toyota born small to kick the gas mileage ratings on their ear with more miles per gallon. More miles per gallon of gasoline than any other car. The Toyota Starlet, a small wonder, maybe the first small wonder of the world. Starlet! Toyota!
My name's Kimberly Hernandez, and this is Daniel Hernandez, and we live in Simi Valley.
My Toyota is a 86 Toyota Cressida. I've had it for about 4 years now. It took me about 3 years to find a Cressida without a sunroof, because majority sold in California had sunroofs. I've been working on it since I've got it, still working on it, still work in progress. I've always had a love for the Cressida. I have a couple other Toyotas too. 4. I have 4 Toyotas right now. I have my daily runner, which is a 2016 Camry, and I have a 85 Cressida, which I did JDM upgrades to. And we just recently picked up a GS 400 2000. It's for my dad. I'm basically going through it right now. While I was looking for it, they have a lot of high mileage. This one has over 300,000 miles and drives brand new. That's why I love Toyota.
We've had a lot of different Cressidas. We just fell in love with them because they're luxury, they're comfortable. The seats are like sitting on a couch. They're so soft, and you know. We started in Corollas, and we decided to upgrade to the luxury Toyota, which is considered the Cressida. We've had several wagons, as well as a couple different 4-doors, ranging from the 85. And we've even had a couple 90, 91 Cressidas. They're just great cars, and they've got power for what they are, and we just enjoy them. So we got involved with TOYOTAFEST and TORC back in like 2005, just showing our Corollas, our wagon. We had a 4-door wagon, and we had an 83 2-door Corolla, and we just started just wanting to show our cars, just to show our love for how we build cars and what we drive. We were driving daily, and then it became part of our family when we started to volunteer as staff, helping park the cars, get to the show super early, and just getting to know everybody. Everybody's so nice, and you know, watching everyone build their cars over the years has just been a joy for us. This one behind us is actually Daniel's Cressida. I do have my own. It had been at TOYOTAFEST a few times and has actually taken home second place. And then after that, we decided it was time to do some upgrades. So it's been parked for several years now. We're about to do some more work to it, upgrade the engine. It's got JDM front end, headlights, tail lights, badges. You know, we hope to bring it out again soon, but it's just taking some time to get everything put together.
TOYOTAFEST for me is basically getting to see everyone's love for their passion of building their car, getting together with extended family. It's that one time a year like Christmas, but it's for car people. It runs through our veins. It's like fuel. It's like, ooh, we're getting ready for TOYOTAFEST. I've stayed up many hours trying and get up in the morning just to be ready for TORC. Those last minute details, and it's just love for Toyota.
You're about to see an unusual race. 3 European performance sedans against the all-new Toyota Cressida.
Go get him, James.
The Cressida is a luxury car with limousine-style comfort and features. And the new Cressida's independent suspension and electronically fuel-injected twin-cam 6 fits right in with its European counterparts. The Toyota Cressida. It's up with the best of them in every way but one. Price.
Did we win, James? By about $15,000, sir.
Oh, what a feeling, Toyota.
So when you hear the words playing hurt these days, that is usually associated with professional sports, intercollegiate sports, and the like. However, there are times when a Toyota chief engineer can play hurt as well. Here's a story behind that, and that is today's current Prius. When it was under development, the chief engineer had hurt his back. I can't remember what he was doing, but he had inadvertently injured his back. And so some people might say, well, that's it, I'm not going to worry too much about doing my job, but a Toyota chief engineer can't do that. And in fact, it was decided that he would be the final tester for the Toyota Prius seats on today's car. Now, the engineering team developing the seats still did their job as normal. However, the chief engineer stepped out of his role and was our final seat tester, figuring that, well, if my ailing back will be okay in these seats, they're going to be great seats. So it's interesting how these things can happen, and who knows how comfortable the Prius seats would be, but I think they're a little bit more comfortable than they could have been because our chief engineer tested them at the end, and that was because he was playing hurt.
From the minute Toyota first introduced the Toyota Corolla, it was a winner. But Toyota felt there was a need for another kind of winner, a car that was even lower priced, even more economical. So they made the Corolla.
Corolla, the new one from Toyota. Check the shape, the statistics, and smile.
Price just $16.86. Mileage 30 to the gallon. Speed 87 miles an hour. And no chassis lubrication ever. Toyota Corolla.
Corolla, the new one from Toyota. Check the shape, the statistics,
just $16.86.
and smile.
If cars could talk, this 1970 Toyota Corolla would probably have a few stories to tell. Over 130,000 miles worth, rough miles. And this is the lady that drove them, Mary Mahoney. Mary and her Toyota used to deliver a daily newspaper to the residents of Lewis County, Washington. Together, the two of them weathered mountains and back roads all year round. The route took 5.5 hours and covered hundreds of stops a day, 6 days a week. That adds up to 130,000 miles of rough driving. Eventually, Mary left her route, but she held on to her car. Today, Mary uses her Toyota Corolla as a simple family car, just like it was to start with.
See your nearby Toyota dealer and get your hands on a Toyota you'll never let go.
The Corolla and Celica nameplates helped establish Toyota as a global phenomenon, and here are a few phenomenal examples.
My name is Clayton Carrillo, and this is my 2002 Toyota Celica GT.
Coming to us from Vacaville, California, Clayton Carrillo's 2003 Celica is a work in progress.
It's an automatic by VIN with a 1ZZ, but I have since swapped it with a JDM 2ZZ motor and a C64 from a Lotus Elise with an LSD. I've acquired an entire full TORC kit with the front bumper, the side skirts, the valence, and the TORC wing. Big brake kit in the front by TORC, and one of my favorite personal mods on this vehicle is the TORC Sports Lid. It gets me the most compliments. Something else I'm really proud of that I've also added is a JDM HVAC. One of my future modifications I'm trying to work on is adding a Greddy supercharger to the 2ZZ, and I'm going to be fully tracking this thing. Pretty excited for that.
David Wagner of Palm Springs, California brings us his 1996 Celica GT Liftback. Though stock appearing on the outside, this 82,000-mile original car features a custom leather interior with ultra-suede headliner and Alpine sound system. Ireland's classic Toyota community is strong, and Gerard McKenna's 1978 Celica RA28 GT is a prime ambassador of this culture. Based in County Monaghan, Gerard Celica is an original twin-cam model that sits on a subtly lowered suspension. Robert Sauls of Reno, Nevada presents his original Survivor 1966 Corona. This car was purchased new by Robert's mother in 1966 and has covered only 72,000 miles since then. Finally, here's Vincent Chan's 1986 Corolla AE86 from West Covina, California. Though born an SR5, Vincent's Hachiroku has received the full GTS treatment with a 20-valve 4AGE under the hood and an iconic Panda paint scheme. Stay tuned for more TORC Digital after these classic commercials from Toyota.
Motor Trend magazine tested the Toyota Corolla with the new 102 horsepower engine and came up with this. 0 to 60 in 12.6 seconds. For an economy car, that's pretty fast. But Car and Driver magazine came up with an even faster time, 11.4 seconds. Road and Track magazine tested the new Corolla and came up with this. 12 seconds flat. However, Hot Rod magazine came up with the fastest time of all, 10.4 seconds.
Is how fast you can go from 0 to 60 really important? Ask yourself next time you head onto the expressway.
When talking to folks about minivans, we usually think of the stoogey get from point A to point B machine that has a lot of space in it. You can pack it full of people and stuff, and that's great. And there are folks that have a necessary lifestyle that requires that kind of vehicle. But to say minivan and sport in the same sentence, oh boy. Well, a few years back, we worked on a new Sienna minivan, and Chief Engineer Maury and Assistant Chief Engineer Andy Lunn conspired together to come up with a sporty minivan. and came up with the SE grade Sienna minivan as a concept, sold that to Toyota, and got the company to agree that they could build this grade alongside the rest of the stablemates in the Sienna lineup, right? But SE was no joke. It actually had sport-tuned suspension and wheels and tires. It had sport-tuned power steering, and it had a very cool race car-like interior. At the press event for this vehicle, I presented this to the press, and they went out and drove it on the Ortega Highway in Southern California, which is a super twisty road, very popular with the motorcycling community. And these journalists were coming back and reporting to me they were astounded at how well the SE Sienna handled, right? So this concept then moved into production for sure, and it gained actually a very, very good segment in the market, and people began to appreciate its good handling manners. In fact, it did well enough that Toyota Technical Center and DG Spec conspired to make the R-tuned version of a Sienna, which frankly was faster than a Camaro at that time, a Camaro SS at that time, right? So that kept the fire burning inside of Toyota and kept the interest there. And then finally the company realized, you know, as a completion of this, we need to address some market segments that require an all-wheel drive minivan. Why can't we make a great handling, fun to drive Sienna also all-wheel drive? And so Toyota did that and kind of brought the project full circle, and so that anybody who desired a fun to drive Sienna could get one.
Okay, this is my 1974 Corolla. I replaced the bumpers because, like everybody knows, they come with big bumper, but I put the small bumper at the 1971 balance. In my life, I have a lot of Corollas. I think I sold more Corollas than the dealer. There is Corollas in Hawaii, Florida, New York, East Coast, that all of them have been belong to me, that I put it together. But when I find this one, this is original paint, never had been painted. It's white. I like white colors. I like white cars, so I want to keep this car. People telling me to, hey, sell the car because they think I'm going to sell it. No, it's not for sale. So it's no SR5. Somebody put those flares, you know, but it's fine. I'm going to keep it like that for now. I built the motor. It's a 3TC, of course. Arias piston, #1, Arias rules. Arias piston, powder rods, ARP bolts. So it's built strong. It can make, I think that motor can hold easy 500, 550 horsepower, no problem. Right now is we tuned a 10-pound of boost, and it made 229 on the dyno. And it's plenty for the street. This is not a race car. My race car is another one. You guys probably see it on YouTube. But this one is just for the street. I want to keep it the way it is. I don't have intention of paint it or do nothing with it. We make a 5-bolt too, you know, in the front coilovers. What else? Nothing else. Camber plates, I'm going to show you in a minute. The interior is going to be done because the driver's seat is rear bad, so I'm going to send it for upholstery. I put a short shifter, W58 transmission, dual diaphragm clutch, racing clutch. The car is built like a race car, but it's for the streets. I'm planning to drive it every day because I drive in my truck and I'm getting tired of it. So I want to drive this car for a long time. It's not S5, but we found those batches and we put it on. So that's it about the car. Okay, as you can see, it had the, in Puerto Rico, we call this motor the dinosaur because it's old. This motor is the 1980 3TC. Very good motor, push rod motor. I built it with good piston, good rods, good boats, the ARP boats. It had a turbonetti like GT35 turbo. The manifold was made by a good friend of mine, Faye, from the East Coast. He made that manifold. It has a 1000cc injector, MSD digital. The car was tuned by Eric Racing. Eric is the tuner of the car. He made the tuning of this car and also the orange car from Nikola. He tuned both cars. They running pretty good. That's it. I have a racing clutch, like I said before, dual diaphragm clutch, W58 transmission, 5-speed, original rear end, 410, I think is the gear, if I remember correctly. That's about it.
Corolla rules!
The gas-saving Toyota Corolla and 3 leading European imports. 4 tough small cars. Each is solid, durable, and built to give you day in, day out dependability and good gas mileage. But not all include in their base price standard features like an electric rear window defogger or power front disc brakes. Only the Corolla 2-door sedan has all that at no extra cost, plus more horsepower than the others. And this Toyota Corolla also has the lowest sticker price, which we think puts you miles ahead.
This is a line. To some, it is seen as a barrier. To others, it's a point where traditions of the past are abandoned in favor of visions of the future. Introducing the revolutionary new Toyota Supra. It's taken everything sports cars were before and crossed the line.
A few years back, Mr. Akio Toyoda assumed the role of CEO of Toyota Motor Corporation. Shortly thereafter, the Akio effect began to occur. But first, let's back up. Prior to this, Toyota cars were well engineered, well made, reliable, durable transportation, and very practical. However, they lacked quite a bit of excitement. Some of them were downright bland, although capable vehicles. I got a personal taste of this, if you will, when I went to Japan to test drive the Prius C, the small Prius. I get over there, I drive the car extensively, I evaluate it, and I left. I mean, it was not an inspiring car. I let the chief engineer know this car is okay, it does its job. I get back home. Well, about 6 months later, I get a call back. Please come back to test this car again with some other people. So I got back on the track with these same Prius C prototypes, and man, they were different cars. They handled better, they had tighter suspension, they were fun to drive, they were rather exciting for little tiny cars, and it was a great experience. So afterwards, I went to the chief engineer for Prius C and asked him, I said, what brought this on? What happened, right? And he said, well, Akio drove the cars first, did not like them and wanted us to make changes, so now we've made changes, and here you are back to drive again. And I said, well, great, I love it. And he said, good, because he does too, and this is what we're gonna have, right? Which was a great bit of news. So as I got back to the United States, I started seeing and hearing things from Mr. Toyota, such as no more boring cars. And I thought, wow, this is exciting. Our CEO is really into this. And what I noticed thereafter is when I would go test vehicles anywhere for the company and was interacting with engineering, that the chief engineer was always worried and concerned about and very alert to the fact that Akio was going to test drive their product and it had to pass that test drive. And today we still have the same Akio effect going on. no more boring cars. We want to replace that with wakudoki, which basically means in Japanese, pulse-pounding excitement.
So this Toyota Corolla Mark II, 1971. This is a coupe, it's not the sedan. They do have a station wagon also, and they do have a truck. It's not US spec, but this is the coupe. It's a left-hand drive, originally automatic vehicle. I've had another one of this same vehicle. It was a one-owner car. It got rear-ended, and I thought, oh, I'm never gonna have one of these vehicles again. 2 weeks later, recycler, one of them showed up, so bought that vehicle, which is this one. Originally automatic, kind of normal car. It would not have this type of engine in it, but I replaced it with an 18RG. Typically they would put a 5-speed manual transmission behind it, but it's original automatic car, and it's not necessarily a sports car. It's kind of a sports luxury GT vehicle. So I left it an automatic, but I put the 4-speed automatic from 85 Celica. And instead of driving around with a regular 18RG, which my older car that got rear-ended did have, I'm turbocharging this one with old school parts. It's got water-cooled intercooler from Sigma Auto. It's an EFI setup for an 18RG. It's just got a standard log manifold for a turbo, and so many other small mixing stuff going on. I put an AC in it too, because originally it is an AC car. So this is kind of the unique thing about it. Not only the engine, but I've done the transmission, the suspension, interior. Everything's been kind of done restored, so it's been taking quite a long time to actually build it up as I go. But it is quite of a unique vehicle, to the point where like side markers are Japan spec, rear taillights, I put the Australian spec taillights, so typically it's all red, but I have an orange taillight to have orange specific for Australia. So putting unique things on it. For instance, these are non-Japanese or non-Toyota standard, but these are Kopito fender mirrors. So I bought these in the box. Not afraid to use NOS stuff, so I put these on. Kind of a unique thing where it's got the hole here. It looks like a SR5-ish without the 2 holes. It's got 1 hole. A lot of other unique things about it. Can't go on to continue going down the path, but some other things like GSS. I'm going to make this into a GSS look. So this is the actual first mass-produced Toyota vehicle with a twin-cam engine in it. You think that 2000 GT or 1600 GT might be the first twin-cam engine, but this is actually the first mass-produced, according to people, the first twin-cam. It came with what they would call a 10R, which is before the 8RG, and then it turned into the 18RG, which is this engine. So I appropriately put the correct engine into the correct car. It's just not the correct vehicle. So just wanted to share a little bit, kind of something unique that I guess for Toyota guys, some of the older traditional guys, they typically like 18RGs or 2TGs, so on and so forth. Maybe the newer one's 4AG. This is actually something that's a little bit unique that I'm building. That's something different. It's actually an 8R, and before the twin cams that were very popular, there was a single cam that was out there that people would build. In Japan they had the 8RB, which was a twin SU spec. This is actually a 8RC, but I have the 8RB pop-up high compression pistons in it with this 8R head that I've actually ported to actually match the intake manifold and whatnot. What's kind of unique about this is this cam cover, which I got on eBay long time ago. It actually is for this engine, and somebody, I don't know who, made this and actually sold them or tried to sell them for, I guess, the US spec market, which is kind of a unique thing. I'm also doing of course, the side draft carburetors, which appropriately doing the Mikunis for the Toyota spec. NOS header for an 18R, and something like a Mallory distributor. These are also NOS for 8R or 18R specific. So combining like the Japan and the US spec engine into this and making something performance oriented that's not something that you see typically. Now there's one caveat to this is we drive left-hand drive cars in the US, so normally these carburetors here will hit the master cylinder. But I have an actual remedy for that because I have a right-hand drive car also. So this is going to go into the right-hand drive car. And ironically, that right-hand drive car cannot use an 18RG because the carburetors hit the master cylinder. So it's kind of a catch-22. For the right-hand drive car, I'm going with this route because I'm kind of stuck with it. But nevertheless, it's something that's kind of unique. And also building something, I'm sure maybe some people have seen this before. There's like things like this Hirsch shifter, which is actually a spec for Corolla. I bought this long time ago on a thing called eBay for 20 bucks. It's still got the warranty card, so maybe I could send it in and get my warranty for Hirsch. Also some things that are kind of different. Everybody likes disc brakes, but there's this thing called the drum brake that you traditionally used, but this is an actual aluminum drum brake. And 240Z guys kind of like this for the rear. In some Japanese Toyota spec cars, they had these. In the US, these were actually for 1966, somewhere around there, front drum for the Corona, and you could pull it off and put it right onto the Corona Mark II rear and make aluminum fin drums. These are so much lighter than the cast iron ones, so making that unsprung weight actually lighter actually increases performance. So small little intricate detail things and building things up, and kind of like stuck in this world of the older cars. You have to understand what fits what and how things are working together. So that's the little story of this engine and how it is going to be fitting together. So why am I building something like this? First of all, I've always driven older Toyotas. Ever since I was in Japan, back in the day, it was all about just going to the junkyard and actually buying a car for, you know, 500 bucks, and it was only 6 years old. And it was kind of in this era of vehicles. And ever since then, I've been locked up into that period of vehicle. I've kind of bought some newer vehicles and whatnot, but always came back to the older cars. I've had Crown, Corona, pickup, a variety of things, always older Japanese cars. Not necessarily always Toyota, but I always kind of fall back to Toyota because it's always my car that I always kind of enjoy to drive. And this thing is actually being built for the daily driving purpose, meaning I'm not gonna trailer crane this thing. I'm not gonna like park it undercover or anything like that. It's gonna sit outside on the side of the street, get rained on. I'm gonna wash it with soap and water. I'm gonna drive it to the daily, you know, store and whatnot and buy things, commute, whatnot. So that's the reason why I'm actually building this, not to make a trailer crane. Am I going overboard? Maybe I might be, yes, but why not drive these cars? A lot of cars get kind of restored and that's great, but they just sit inside of a garage and kind of just don't do anything. And that's great too, because you're preserving the vehicle. You spend a lot of time and money into it. I think it's always best to drive the cars, so that's kind of why I'm building this thing. And appropriately, I'm building it so it's kind of a comfortable vehicle, not necessarily keeping all the older technology. It's going to have air conditioning. I put power windows on it. I don't have power steering, but a variety of things I'm upgrading to actually modernize it to actually have a comfortable vehicle to drive, yet still have it framed as an older vehicle that people could look at, stare at, and give me a thumbs up while I'm driving. So that's kind of like the thing that I'm doing for this vehicle right now.
Kopito. I've been a member of TORC for about 23 years. The first TOYOTAFEST we had at the Queen Mary across the bay here, I brought three Japanese cars, and I think we had about 8 or maybe 14 cars altogether, so I own 3 of those. And I have not missed a TOYOTAFEST since then. Now we're doing it in the Marina Green and really like this place. And this was our 25th show. So I hope I can continue to do it. This is my 1989 Toyota Land Cruiser. I've owned this car about 13 years. Imported from Japan. It has about 40,000 original miles on it. Owned many Land Cruisers over my lifetime and many Japanese cars. I like trucks and pickups and off-road vehicles primarily. And great to see everybody here.
Thanks for watching TORC Digital, All Toyota Fest's first ever online event. We hope you enjoyed this celebration of the spirit of Toyota restoration and collecting, and we look forward to seeing you again next year.